The lamp in the small room at Nicopolis burned low, and the lame old man on the stool was speaking to a handful of young Romans who had crossed the Adriatic to hear him. One of them, a wealthy youth in fine wool, had just asked what he should do about a brother who refused to speak to him, about a father whose favor he had lost, about a future he could not see. The old man, who had once been a slave in the household of Nero's freedman, looked at the boy for a long moment before he answered, and what he said next would be written down by another student in that room and preserved for 19 centuries. He said, "Some things are in our power and some things are not." That is where we begin, with a sentence so short it seems hardly worth remembering, and yet it is the sentence upon which the whole edifice of his teaching rests. The man who spoke it was Epictetus, born a slave in Phrygia around the year 50 of the Common Era, sold into the household of a freedman of the imperial court, lamed at some point in his youth, manumitted, exiled with the other philosophers when Domitian drove them from Rome, and finally settled in the Greek town of Nicopolis on the western coast, where he opened a school and taught until his death sometime in the second decade of the 2nd century. He wrote nothing. What we have of him survives because a student named Arrian, who would later write a history of Alexander, sat in his lectures and recorded what was said. The Discourses, as we have them, are not a treatise. They are a transcript. You are, in a sense, sitting in that room. Let us reflect, then, on the principle. The opening of the Enchiridion, that small handbook Arrian compiled from the lectures, begins this way in the old translation of George Long. Of things some are in our power and others are not. In our power, our opinion, movement towards a thing, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever are our own acts. Not in our power are the body, property, reputation, offices, and in a word, whatever are not our own acts. Read it again, slowly, because the whole teaching is here. Opinion, the movement of the will toward a thing. Desire, aversion, these are yours. Your body, however, is not yours, not entirely. Property is not yours. Reputation, that thing for which men spend their whole lives anxious, is not yours. Office, position, station, the regard of others, none of these are in your power. Now, you may have noticed already a difficulty. Surely my body is mine. Surely I can choose what to eat, when to walk, whether to rise from this chair. Epictetus does not deny that you have influence over these things. What he denies is that you have power over them in the sense that matters. A fever can take your body in the night. A magistrate can take your property in the morning. A rumor can take your reputation by sundown. If you have staked your peace on what can be taken from you, then your peace is held by every fever and every magistrate and every passing rumor. You have placed the center of your life outside yourself, where any hand may reach it. What remains within? Only this, your judgment, your assent or refusal to the impressions that come before your mind, your desire, properly trained, your aversion, properly trained, the use you make of what arrives. This is the small territory of which you are sovereign. Everything else is borrowed. The Stoics called this prohairesis, the faculty of choice, the reasoned will. It is the one thing Epictetus insists again and again that Zeus himself does not touch. Even a tyrant cannot compel you to assent to a falsehood, though he may compel your body to silence about it. Even chains do not chain the will. The will, he says, is its own master. This is not a metaphor. He means it with great seriousness, and it is here that we must understand what kind of man it was who taught this, because the principle in his mouth is not the principle in ours. It comes from a particular life. Consider then his circumstance. We know he was born in Hierapolis, in what is now southwestern Turkey. The name Epictetus is not a name, it is a designation. Epictetos in Greek means acquired. It is what one calls a slave, whose given name is not worth recording. He came as a young person into the household of Epictetus, a wealthy freedman who served in the administrative apparatus of Nero, and there he lived a portion of his life in conditions that we, sitting in our comfortable rooms, can only imperfectly imagine. He was permitted at some point to study philosophy under Musonius Rufus, one of the most respected Stoic teachers of the age, and this is itself remarkable, for it suggests that his master saw in him something worth cultivating, or at least did not forbid the cultivation. There is a story, perhaps apocryphal, that one day his master in a rage began to twist his leg. Epictetus is said to have observed calmly, "If you continue, you will break it." The master continued. The leg broke. Epictetus is said to have remarked with the same calm, "I told you so." Whether the story is literally true matters less than what it preserves. He was lame. The lameness was real, and the school he founded would always carry, in the body of its founder, the visible evidence that the body is not in our power. After Nero's death, after the convulsions of the year of 4 emperors, Epictetus was freed. We do not know precisely when or how. He went to Rome and began to teach. Then, in the year 93 or 94, the Emperor Domitian, suspicious of philosophers as he was suspicious of nearly everyone, ordered them all expelled from Italy. Epictetus, with the others, crossed to Greece, and there in Nicopolis, a town founded by Augustus to commemorate his victory at Actium, he established his school. Nicopolis was not Athens. It was a provincial town, important enough for trade, modest enough to be quiet. The students came to him, often from great distances. Young Romans of the senatorial class, ambitious for careers, anxious about their advancement, traveled days to sit in his austere lecture hall. He did not flatter them. He did not give them what they came for. They came hoping to acquire polish, the kind of refinement that would impress in the forum, and he asked them instead whether they had ever once examined the impressions that arose in their own minds. He lived simply. We are told he had an earthenware lamp, and when it was stolen, he replaced it with one of clay, observing that one should not own what one is unwilling to lose. He never married, though late in life he adopted a child whose parents could not raise it, and is said to have taken a woman into his household to help care for it. He had no slaves, he had little property. He taught, and he ate, and he slept, and he taught again. The Discourses, when you read them, give you the sound of his voice. He is sometimes sharp, he is sometimes mocking, he is patient with the slow and impatient with the vain. He is, above all, a man who knows the difference between what is his and what is not, because he has lived on both sides of that line. The line, you see, was not theoretical for him. He had been property. He had been owned. He knew in a way that Marcus on his throne or Seneca in his villa could never quite know what it was to have his body and his time and his labor belong to another man. And out of this knowledge, not in spite of it, he arrived at the conclusion that the only thing which truly belonged to him was the use he made of his own mind. Everything else had been taken once and could be taken again. Only the will remained. So now we may ask how the principle functioned for him. How did it operate in the texture of his daily life? Not as a slogan, not as a comfort, as a working tool. He used it first as a method of triage. When something arrived before him, a piece of news, a request, a fear, a sudden impression, he applied to it what he called the discipline of assent. He paused before the impression. He asked, "What is this? Is this within my power or outside it?" If outside, he treated it as nothing to him in the technical sense, meaning that he did not allow his good or his evil to depend upon it. If within, he asked what right use he could make of it. He gives, in the Discourses, many examples of this method. A friend has died. Is the death within your power? It is not. Then the death is not your concern, in the sense that it cannot harm your moral nature. What is within your power is how you receive the news, how you mourn, whether you bear it well or badly. He does not say you should not weep. He says you should not be destroyed. The weeping belongs to the body, which has its own movements. The destruction would belong to the will, which is yours, and which you must guard. Or again, the emperor has summoned you. You may be sent into exile. Is the exile within your power? It is not. Then the exile is, in itself, neither good nor bad. What is within your power is whether you go bravely or whimpering, whether you preserve your dignity or surrender it, whether you continue to be a philosopher or become merely a frightened animal. He has, of course, lived this. He has been exiled. He has crossed the sea with nothing. He is speaking from inside the example. He uses the principle, secondly, as a discipline of desire. The untrained mind, he observes, desires things which are not in its power, and this is the root of all misery. A man desires wealth, which can be lost. He desires the favor of the powerful, which can be withdrawn. He desires that his children should live, which is not in his keeping. To desire what one cannot secure is to invite suffering, and to invite suffering is ultimately to lose the use of one's will to the fluctuations of fortune. What then should one desire? Only what is in one's power. One should desire to think clearly. One should desire to choose well. One should desire to act with virtue. These desires can always be fulfilled because their fulfillment depends on no one but oneself. The wise man, he says, has rearranged his desires so that they fall entirely inside the small circle of the will. He wants nothing that the world can refuse him. There is, in the 4th book of the Discourses, a passage where he addresses a man complaining of his troubles. The man has lost a lawsuit. He has been treated unjustly. Epictetus listens, and then he says, in effect, the lawsuit, the verdict, the injustice, all of this is outside you. What is inside you is your response. Are you angry? That is yours. Are you bitter? That is yours. Are you carrying the injury into tomorrow? That too is yours. The judge has done what he can do. He has touched your property. He has not touched you, unless you let him. This is hard teaching. It is hard because we do not believe it. We feel ourselves injured by what is done to us, and we resent being told that the injury is, in some sense, of our own making. Epictetus does not deny that what is done to us is real. He denies that it reaches the part of us that matters unless we extend that part outward to meet it. He used the principle, thirdly, as a foundation for action in the world. This is important because the dichotomy of control is sometimes misread as a counsel of withdrawal. It is not. Epictetus does not say, since outcomes are not in your power, do not act. He says, act, but locate your good in the acting, not in the outcome. Throw a discus, he might say. The throw is yours. Where the discus lands is not. Therefore, throw it well and let it land where it will. Speak the truth in counsel. The speaking is yours. Whether you are heeded is not. Therefore, speak it well and let it be received as it will. Raise your child with care. The care is yours. Whether the child lives, whether he grows wise, whether he honors you in your age, this is not. Therefore, care for him well and let the rest unfold. You see how the principle does not paralyze. It liberates the actor from the tyranny of results. It allows him to act fully with his whole strength, precisely because his peace does not ride upon the outcome. He has already, in the acting, accomplished what is his. The rest belongs to Zeus, or to fortune, or to the long, indifferent weave of the world. Now we must come to the structural lesson, which is what the principle is actually teaching beneath the examples and the exhortations. The lesson is this: there is a category error at the root of human suffering. The error is to treat as ours things that are not ours, and to neglect, as if it were not ours, the one thing that is. We attend all day long to our reputations, our possessions, our standing, the moods of other people, the weather, the future, the past. We barely attend at all to our own judgments, our own assents, the small daily movements of our own will. We have reversed the order of attention that our nature requires. To correct this error is the whole of the philosophical life, as Epictetus understands it. It is not a matter of acquiring new doctrines. It is a matter of relocating the center of one's concern. The wise man, he says, is not the one who knows more. He is the one who has correctly distinguished what is his from what is not, and who governs his life accordingly. Notice what this means in practice. It means that the philosophical life is available to anyone at any station. A slave can live it. Epictetus is the proof. An emperor can live it. Marcus is the proof. A merchant can live it. A farmer can live it. A prisoner in chains can live it. The dichotomy of control respects no external condition because it does not depend on external conditions. It depends only on the use one makes of one's own mind, and that use is always available in any circumstance whatever. This is the radical equality at the heart of Stoicism. It is also why the teaching survived. It did not require a particular political arrangement, a particular wealth, a particular freedom. It required only that one possess a mind, and that one consent to use it. But the lesson has a sharper edge, and we should not soften it. Epictetus is telling you that most of what you spend your life worrying about is not yours, and that to worry about it is to misplace your effort. The promotion you did not receive, the friendship that cooled, the illness that came, the slight you suffered last Tuesday. He is not saying these things do not happen. He is saying they are not the proper objects of your attention because they are not in your keeping. You can do nothing about them except respond to them well or badly, and the responding is the only part that is yours. This redirects the whole economy of a life. The energy that was spent on the uncontrollable can now be spent on the controllable. Not on changing the world exactly, but on changing the one part of the world over which you have actual jurisdiction: yourself, your judgments, your habits of perception, the shape of your own attention. This is, Epictetus insists, Plenty of work. It is in fact more work than a single lifetime can complete. But it is work that always pays out, because the materials are always at hand. There is also in the principle a quiet doctrine of freedom. Epictetus, who had been a slave, returns again and again to the question of who is free. The man with property is not free because his property holds him. The man with office is not free because his office holds him. The man with a wife and children he cannot bear to lose is not free because his love, held wrongly, holds him. Freedom, in his sense, is not the absence of external constraint. It is the absence of internal constraint. It is the condition of a will that wants nothing it cannot have, and therefore can be deprived of nothing. This is what he means when he says, in the Discourses, I must die. Must I then die groaning? I must be imprisoned. Must I then whine? I must go into exile. Does any man hinder me from going with a smile, and cheerfully and contentedly? Tell me the secret which you have. I will not, for this is in my power, but I will throw you into chains. Man, what are you talking about? Me into chains? You may fetter my leg, but my will not even Zeus himself can overpower. You may fetter my leg, but my will not even Zeus himself can overpower. Hold that sentence for a moment. It is spoken by a man whose leg, in fact, was broken once, who had once worn the chains he now describes, and who had concluded, from the very fact of his having worn them, that there was something in him they had not been able to reach. The dichotomy of control is, in his mouth, not an abstract distinction. It is the discovery he made while he was still owned. It is the door he found in the wall of his life. So we come to the end, and to the question you must carry away with you. It is not the question of whether you accept the principle. Acceptance is easy. One can accept many things in the afternoon and forget them by evening. The question is finer than that. Consider, in the next several days, what you spend your worry upon. Not what you think you spend it upon, but what you actually spend it upon in the small moments when your mind drifts. The unread message, the remembered slight, the future event whose outcome you cannot determine, the opinion someone you barely know may or may not hold of you. Watch this honestly, without correcting it yet. Just observe. Then ask yourself the question Epictetus would ask. Of all this, what part is in my power? Not what part influences me. What part is in my power in the strict sense, such that my act of will alone determines it? You will find, if you are honest, that the answer is very small. A great deal of the territory you have been tending is not yours. You have been watering another man's field, and your own has gone dry. The question then is this: if tomorrow you began to spend your attention only on what is actually in your power, and to treat the rest as the weather, present but not owned, what would your life look like by the end of a year? Not transformed necessarily, not improved by any measure the world would recognize, but yours. In a way, it perhaps has not been. The small territory tended, the large territory released. Epictetus would not press you for an answer. He did not press his students for answers. He spoke, and he let what was said do its work in the silence afterward. He understood, having taught for many years, that a principle stated cannot be received in the moment of its stating. It must be carried away and turned over in solitude. It must meet the actual occasions of a life before it begins to mean anything. So carry it away. The lamp in the small room at Nicopolis has long since gone out. The students who sat there have been dust for 19 centuries. but the sentence remains, simple as the day it was spoken, waiting for whoever will pick it up. Some things are in our power, and some things are not. What will you do with the small part that is yours?